Hello, everyone. You're listening to Michelle Speaks on 180radionow.com, currently heard in over 128 countries around the world, and I'm your host, Michelle Portier, founder of Healing Women, Healing Nations of Northeast Florida. We live in a society that condones living behind masks, hiding who we are and the issues we face, some too taboo to discuss with anyone. You may be worried about being judged or ashamed of what others may be thinking of you. Michelle Speaks not only uncovers it, but we look for solutions to deal with it head on. Stay tuned as we get to the heart of the matter, because if you hide it, you can't heal it. Welcome to another segment of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. Today we are going to be talking about another taboo topic, sex and intimacy, deal breakers. We are going to get down and dirty talking about not only sex but intimacy, the difference between the two, and how that all works together. There are many people hurting from the corporate arena to the church house and every place in between, suffering in silence, wearing a mask to hide the things they struggle with, fearful of being labeled, judged, and condemned. Michelle Speaks provides a platform to discuss the undiscussable, and to provide viable solutions, and to bring hope. So today I have with me in the studio Mr. Anthony M. Butler. Mr. Butler, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today to talk about a topic that is near and dear to all of us, but many of us don't discuss openly.
Good morning. It's good to be here. Definitely.
Thank you. Glad to see you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share a little bit about some of the research that I've done, and then we want to know all about Mr. Anthony M. Butler.
All right.
40% of marriages end in divorce, and breakups are even more frequent among unmarried couples. University of Denver research has studied almost 1,000 unmarried couples in committed opposite-sex relationships, and found that 14% had sex outside the relationship over a 21-month period, and 43% of those couples' relationships ended because of infidelity. And I do that as a precursor because I want you to tell us about Mr. Butler. Okay. But I also wanted to give our listening audience an idea of where we're going today.
Understand.
Right.
For me, as who I am, first of all, I am the international director and founder of an organization called E3 Business Group, and we work to build aspiring entrepreneurs around the world. We handle about 1,000 entrepreneurs in 18 cities, and this year we went international in Puerto Rico, Canada, and Europe, military families. The goal is, thank you. It is a big deal. 22 years, and what our purpose is very simple. We educate, encourage, and empower aspiring entrepreneurs. We help them with becoming successful in their business, and then we also support their efforts to be successful in the community as leaders and as advocates. And so my passion is seeing the talents and abilities that God is giving you and allowing you to move them forward. So through mechanisms like the great Project 180 that's going on here, and of course the work that you do, Michelle, I just love to see entrepreneurs that kind of take that candle and light it and put it on top of the table instead of the bushel basket. Right. You know what I mean?
And we so appreciate you. I want to put a plug in here to say that I am where I am now because of E3 and Mr. Anthony Butler and the work that he has done. He has plowed hard for many years.
Yes, ma'am.
And all of the recognition and honor that he's receiving now is truly well deserved. So thank you.
Well, I received that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just had to give honor where honor is due.
Thank you.
So you've told us a little bit about Mr. Anthony Butler professionally. So tell us about Mr. Butler personally and spiritually.
Personally, I am growing every day. I guess to get the shock value out there right away, I have been married twice. I have 3 grown, beautiful children that I was not very much in their lives. And I have 2 equally beautiful children that were from my second marriage, who are in my life. God gave me a second chance of being a good father.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful what he does in spite of what people say should happen.
Right.
With that being said, I've spent the last 2 years probably stopping last year being angry at God because of things that went on in my life that I felt were unfair, weren't right, weren't just. Some of it was denial, some of it was deflection,
Right.
and a lot of it was just hurt brought on by myself and others in my world. And over the past year, well, let me say this. Some of the greatest steps and achievements that I had personally and professionally came during that period of time where I was angry at God.
Wow.
And I say that to say that even though I was angry at him, he wasn't angry at me.
And that's rich.
And it took a while for me to understand that he showed me more love when I showed him less. He showed me more when I showed him less. And,
that's profound.
Yeah. And you know, I hear a lot of people talk about faith, and faith is real easy to talk about when you don't have anything to challenge it with. When you do have those challenges and you fall down, you know, like that song, you know, we fall down, but we get up. But nowhere in that song does it say how hard it is to get up.
Right.
It just says we get up, like we just pop up, and that's
Right.
just not real. So some of the things that have happened to me have been around intimacy and sex and relationships. And so that was why I really wanted to come onto this program, because there's a group of people out there, men, who think that this is an area that only impacts women. And that's just not the case. I mean, since most intimacy these days, I have to say most, is between a man and a woman.
Right.
Obviously, there's two sides to that and two parts. And my grandmother used to say, there's your story, their story, and
then the
the
truth.
story. Yeah, you know. And so that's why I wanted to be on the show today and talk about this, because I struggle with intimacy. I'm very good with dealing with people in the business world. I can establish relationships, rapport. I can become everything that a person needs when it comes to their business. Professionally, yeah. And then those waters become very muddied when I look at it on the personal side. I've struggled with a lot of growth, and I've probably learned more about being a better person individually in a relationship in the past 2 or 3 years through some very bad trial and error.
Right.
And,
Isn't that how we learn?
Yeah. And just life, but just understanding, becoming more secure in myself, more secure in what I do, and learning how to take some of the same talents that I do naturally in the business world and do those same things personally. And I think the first misconception that a lot of people have is that just because you're good at something in business doesn't mean you're good at it personally. And that was what I dealt with a lot. I would be, whether it was my marriage or other relationships, I would be looked at like, well, you do this all day, or, you know, with everybody.
Right.
You always know what they're saying. You take your time and listen, but you don't do that personally.
Right.
And, you know, they were right.
Wow.
Wasn't very good at it. And I say, well, it's different. And I've started to learn it is, but it isn't. It's the same skills. It's just, do you bring that same care and concern to the individual that you're in a relationship with, the same way you take that care and concern about the individual's business?
Wow.
And it was safer for me to do it in business because personally, you have to make yourself vulnerable at the same time. And that was a defense mechanism for me.
Vulnerable, transparent.
Yeah, all of that. And
fearing rejection.
Yeah. And I got into some, when I was a kid, man, I could have been in a furniture store because I used to lie like a rug. You know what I mean?
What?
And I would just lie about silly stuff. You know,
Right.
it's raining outside. No, it's not, boy. Yeah, it is. You know,
Right.
Or lie to get out of trouble, or lie to be accepted, things like that. And I found I kind of grew out of that over time, but it was always a struggle for me.
Right.
But in business, I became somebody of very high integrity, and I understood how valuable it was to have that integrity. And if I did make a mistake, I would own up to it and I would get better. So I excelled much more with business than I did personally, because whenever I got challenged, I would fall into those same bad habits that I did as a kid.
You go back to the familiar.
Yeah. And it was a struggle. Now I feel like, you know, one of those people that says, you know, it's been so many years since I smoked, you know.
Right.
I take that approach to being of integrity personally.
Okay.
And it's something that took a while to get there. And I'm still, you know, I still struggle with that.
You're a work in progress.
Always. And the person that says they solved it, they're, you know, they must be dead, because I don't think you ever solve it, as long as you're here.
Well, I think it's a journey.
Yeah, it is. So.
I have to be totally transparent and tell you that when you were talking about the professional success and the personal bumps in the road, obstacles or whatever, I had to sit here and think about, have you been reading my mind? Have you been in my closet, or fly on the wall when I'm talking? Because I've experienced the same thing, that I am fairly successful professionally, but personally, looking at, past failed relationships and things like that, I see failure.
Right.
And the common denominator in all of that, in my mind, was me. So it was like, okay, what is wrong with me? Is that something along the lines of what you were feeling, or is it something different?
At times it was about, me having issues, but at times it was more about me not discerning how to avoid issues.
Okay.
You can put things in your life that are negative and or positive. You have to make a choice on it. And if you keep choosing junk, you'll get junky results. Junk in, junk out. Yeah. And so in my business world with E3, it's a philosophy that forces me to be disciplined. It forces me to have something of high caliber, high quality, to educate, encourage, empower. That's all things that I strive for. In the personal, though, I didn't have that same type of mantra. And I had to develop that. And once I developed that mantra, things started to change for me. So to answer the question, yeah, there was some guilt at times, but the more I became an understanding of myself, I use hashtag know me now. The more I understood that, I was better able to determine, is this me and I need to work on me? Or is it what I'm allowing to be around me?
Right.
And do I need to work on what I allow to be around me?
Right. So the mantra that you held personally before, was that something that was learned, or something that was seen, or something that was just...
I think it's just something that just over the years, you just develop it. You take it from what you're being conditioned to, what you're used to, what works for you.
Right.
But a lot of people don't ever really sit down and have a personal mantra. I didn't.
Right.
E3 became a mantra for me in business, but it wasn't until I really started to apply it personally that I started making better choices.
Okay.
And I think it's like that. And for instance, when you talk about intimacy and sex and understanding that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, what is it that we want? And we just don't talk sometimes.
We don't. I agree.
Now I'll talk in a heartbeat. I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for, companionship? You looking for something long term? Are you looking for whipped cream? What you trying to get? I just need to know. All right, see what we got, what we working with,
right.
and see even that, and that's what we have to do though,
right.
because.
But even in that, when you said that, what are you looking for? Companionship or long-term relationship? Even in that, define to you, because I want to come from a male's perspective as well. Okay. What does companionship mean, and what does that entail? And then the long-term relationship. And then I know we're going to touch on all of them. When you're learning a person, when do you broach the topic, and when is the time to enter into, to cross the line into sex and intimacy?
I think as far as broaching the subject, it should be one of the topics that just comes up and getting to know somebody.
Okay.
I don't think there should be a script, and I don't think there should be a time frame. If you're comfortable enough to bring it up, bring it up. I mean, you may be sitting having a nice evening watching TV, and something comes on TV, a commercial comes on, and you use that as a launch point and say, hey, what do you think about that? Right. You watch TV after 11:15, you may see lotions and potions and all sorts of stuff pop up.
All kinds of
stuff.
So
why do we look away and all of a sudden check our phone and stuff like that? And say, because if McDonald's comes on, you like McNuggets?
Right.
Yeah, I love McNuggets, girl. You do too. Now we just bonded. We're going to do a McDonald's date, or whatever, or a fine restaurant. So why not the same thing?
Right.
Ooh, what do you think about that KY? No, but it's a conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's where I am now. I will talk about anything and everything.
The vulnerability piece.
I don't think that's so much a vulnerability. I think that's just more people, society being, tabooish about stuff. Gotcha. But you're not vulnerable whether you talk about whether you like something or not. You're vulnerable when you start talking about whether you did it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Big difference.
It's a big difference.
Big difference.
I can tell you I like toys, but if I say now I got a drawer full of toys,
right.
We just changed
The whole dynamics of the
whole
conversation.
dynamic of the conversation. Now you're
Right.
talking about batteries and electrical appliances and
Right.
short circuits and all that.
And that is definitely considered taboo to talk about it,
it
which
is.
is why we are.
It is. And I'm saying that a little facetiously, but I'm saying it because I think that's how people have to really address it. Because anything that could be, you can get into what I call a crucial conversation. There's a book called Crucial Conversations, and you can get into a crucial conversation over Fruit Loops. If somebody used to get a bolus of Fruit Loops before their father abused them, you understand what I'm saying? You just don't know what a trigger can be for somebody. So
Right.
anything you talk about could potentially take somebody into a different stratosphere of thinking.
Okay.
And I found there are certain trigger words for me. There are certain phrases. There are certain actions that take me down a path that I thought was closed.
Right. And those are some of the things that would come up in conversation.
Sure.
Right.
And,
You're getting
they
to know
will.
someone.
And when they do, how do you handle it? Life is 1% of what happens to you is 99% of how do you handle it. And so sometimes what I found now that works really well for me, Michelle, is I will say, let's have an all out. All out is whatever you want to talk about, just whatever comes up in your mind.
That's a precursor for a conversation.
It is a precursor for the conversation to go to a different level.
Okay.
If somebody asks me one question, I start to answer it, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's have it all out.
Okay.
You can ask whatever you want. I'm in, and be in the mood. We talk about being in the mood to be intimate. You know what? Be in the mood to talk. Because it's no point in you talking to me if I just had a rough day and I'm coming off dealing with a bunch of entrepreneurs and things were all challenging, and then you want to come and have a deep conversation about relationships. It may not be the time.
Say wrong timing.
It's not the time. So
timing is part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's timing. It's how you ask about it. It's when. It's just getting to know the person, and if you make a mistake or a misstep, you do. It's okay. Just you know what? This wasn't a good time. I didn't see that your eye was twitching the way it normally does when you get upset.
Right.
So let me leave you some time and get you a little Calgon or whatever in you, and then we'll come back to this.
Okay. So what constitutes companionship?
That is something I struggled with because I don't look at companionship as not that casual dating. Companionship is when I go through a good moment. I want to be able to, who is that person that I want to text? Who is that person I can't wait till they hear what I did or what was done? Or, it's a person, it's having a person or persons that get you and get what you're doing in your life. And they sincerely and authentically want to share in that.
Or persons?
It's persons or persons because I'm not just talking about your deeper level relationships. There are certain people I want to share what happens business-wise with.
Right.
There are 3 or 4 people that come into my mind right away. My mom comes in my mind right away for certain things, but you want to have that one person that comes in your mind for everything.
Right.
That's a companion.
Okay.
In this day and age, there was a time period where I said, I'm never going to get married again. That's just not something that's for me at all. And I just want to have a companion. I just want to date and have a nice time and enjoy. And if we get close, we get close. And Florida's got common law marriage. So let's use that statute and we good, Now, my mindset after I've gone over some hurt and pain is like, well, I don't know. You can never say never.
Right.
But I do know for me, companionship is having that one person that
one go-to person
that gets you. And even if you don't go to them, they're there. And somebody may catch that later.
But, I caught it.
You know what I'm saying? But because the right person, you don't have to go to them. They're just there. They know it. They just get it. Right. And that's a process. You can't just, you may fall in love at first sight, but you don't become in love at first sight. You just don't.
That's a process that, happens over time. That's just my belief.
And it may not happen for everybody.
Right.
And that's okay. And that's the whole dating part of it. I mean, I know somebody out there is holding on to their Bible in one hand and cross in the other saying, oh no, he can't say that. But the reality is you got to get to know people. And how else do you do it? You got to go out. You got to spend time together. And I don't see any other way you can do it,
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So my other question is, does companionship have to incorporate sex or intimacy?
I don't think it has to incorporate it. No, it doesn't have to incorporate it, but sometimes it may. It all depends on the people. So everybody has a different level of what they're comfortable with, you know. I'm not going to put mine out there because I don't want anybody taking notes saying, he's a 3-week guy or whatever, you know.
Right.
I don't have anything in my mind as far as how long it takes. I think when you feel a certain way and you have that moment that comes, you know, there's that, everybody has that Disney moment where the light gets brighter and the music sounds better and everything just comes in and you're like, this is the first touch. It could be the first kiss. It could be the first moment. But when that happens, then hopefully you know it's right for you.
Right.
Do I think it could be 1 week out, 1 month out, 1 year out? I don't know. But I just think for everybody, you have to be able to understand and respect where the other person is. And so that may be a question that you ask your person, because you may be feeling a moment and they're just feeling minute.
Expound on that.
Well, you may be building something up in your mind that they haven't built up in their mind. This is a minute time, you know, event. But in your mind, you've built it up, so it's a moment.
Right.
It's momentous, and if you're not on the same page with that, we're always on a bell curve, and that's not a good thing.
So, what is intimacy?
Intimacy is you glancing up from your glass at the same time I'm glancing up from my plate, and we just sparks fly. It could be you're all the way across the room, and somebody says something, and you just turn and look, and you catch the other person's eye. It could be touching a hand just to say it's all right, it's okay. It could be grabbing somebody and putting them up against the wall and kissing them like you want them to faint.
Well,
you understand what I'm saying? So intimacy can be any type of sensual, deep, authentic show of action that the other person gets as being specifically designed and done for their benefit alone.
I like that.
And that is intimacy. Because what makes intimacy is that it is unique between you and one other person. Nobody else can share that intimate moment. They may see it. They may be around it. They may even understand it's happening, but nobody can feel intimacy between two people other than those two people. That's intimacy to me.
I like that. Many people use sex and intimacy interchangeably. How do you discover the differences in your life?
Sex and intimacy are two different things. You can be intimate in having sex, but sex doesn't make intimacy. And that's the difference right there. Sex is an act. It is a physical act of hopefully pleasing the other person.
Right.
You can't take that for granted.
Right.
Because for some people, sex is pain. If that's what their connotation of sex is pain, you know, or it's fear, you know. So for me, intimacy is a essence that goes through what you do and what you say. I can say something to you intimately. You know, if we had a special moment around Krispy Kremes, I could walk by you and in your ear say Krispy Kremes, and you start what? Right. You know, go hit the thermostat, baby.
Right.
I didn't know it was a Krispy Kreme afternoon. I'll be right back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So intimacy is a way of being. It's a mindset. You know, I'm big on mindsets. It's a mindset. Sex is a physical action. You can't do sex mentally. You know, you can't do, I don't care what people say about virtual sex and all that type of stuff. You know,
I don't agree with that. I feel that it's so unfulfilling.
Well, you can't be filled by air. So of course it's unfilling. You know, you can't be filled by something that has no substance.
Right.
So it's simple as that. Sex is an act, physical act, or whatever level it is. And intimacy is the essence or the mindset that is in play when you do that act.
So say that you have an attraction to someone and there's the chemistry and is there. What makes the determination on whether or not you're going to act on that attraction or that chemistry?
I think now you get into the personality and the psychology, you know, how the psychology of a person. But you can have chemistry with a lot of different people, and that's good. Matter of fact, that's a people person. They develop chemistry, rapport with a lot of different people. I don't like people. You know, Honestly, you got to feed them and take them out and walk them places.
You make it sound like it's a dog or
no,
a cat.
y'all make it sound like it. But I mean, people are people. You do. You got to take them to eat, or you got to get groceries for them. You got to make sure they happy when they get up in the morning. You got to do things with them, show them attention. That right? I mean,
you got to make sure they're happy. I thought happiness comes from within.
It may, but a lot of times it comes from within when you help. Okay. Let's just be real about it. If that was the case, we wouldn't be talking about companionship, would we?
No, we would.
Okay. So we got to stay with it. So for me, but yet I have a lot of rapport with people out in the public. I speak to hundreds of people, sometimes thousands, and they all relate and resonate with what I'm saying, and I get along. But sometimes I just want to get out of the room, so there's a difference. There's a difference.
I did say that Michelle Speaks is if you hide it, you can't heal it, and no topic is taboo. So with that being said, I have to be transparent and say that I really don't like people too tough either. It's interesting. A lot of people think entrepreneurs are all extroverts and outgoing and things like that, and a lot of them are not. That's not the case.
They're not. They're very creative. They're very private. They're very explosive in their expression of what's going on and what matters to them. But once they express that, they rather just go back. They're more like a mad scientist. They just want to go back in and create again.
Right.
Back to what we're going to do today, Pinky. Same thing we did every day.
Right.
Just going to keep those people away.
Right.
So I think when we're talking about that whole chemistry thing versus intimacy, people have a disconnect because they don't understand that chemistry is just something that happens because of personality or habits or similarities in what you've experienced. But intimacy is something that is developed. It's something that comes from being with the person and understanding the person and getting to understand how you respond to them and they respond to you. You have intimacy within family. Twins have it at a high level, but close siblings have it as well. You do have intimacy with your spouses, of course, but sometimes that intimacy goes beyond just the, like we were talking about the physical. It's that intimacy of you. The minute you see something in the store, you say, oh my goodness, I know he would love that. I got to take a picture of that. I got to make sure that's intimacy. That's an intimacy in your mindsets and understanding what you start thinking about what the other person likes in the midst of what you're doing, while you're doing what you like. That's intimate. That's an intimate moment.
I agree. I concur.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump over to the topic of sex.
Okay. Yay.
So sex, if it goes well in a relationship, it takes it to another level and brings the two together. More than anything else, it keeps the relationship fresh and exciting. However, it can also be the cause of a large number of arguments because of the differences between how much you want to have it, when you want to have it, the frequency. The woman may feel cheapened because maybe she feels like that's all you think about. The man may feel like he's not getting enough of it. So what is your stance on sexual satisfaction within the relationship and what that means? Talk about what you want to satisfy you. Okay. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, I know I should probably make it more melodramatic, but no, this is real.
It's as simple as that. I think, yeah, and I had to make sure how I said that. I take pride in making a woman feel good. If I'm in a relationship with somebody and there is that type of physical action, I want to be at my best. Simple as that. But I can't be at my best if I don't know what's their best, what's best for them. Gotcha. And I want the same. I mean, I took the approach of, well, let me make sure I make her feel good so she's motivated to make me feel good. Right. Does that make sense? That makes a whole lot of sense. There's a whole new meaning for others before us. Right. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. But you got to talk about it, Michelle. You have to say what you like, say what you don't like, say what you don't know, say what you do know, say what you're willing to be taught, say what you, I'm going to take the 0 on that one. Right. Okay. There are just certain things. So talk about what the no-go zones are. I think you should talk about all of that. Okay. I think, oh, I like that. Oh, I love that. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, wait a minute now. There's right there. Yeah, right, let's back up here. Okay. Make that note. Okay. Stay right there. Exactly. I mean, and I think it should be talked about just naturally. I don't think you can sit down and say, okay, today we're going to talk about let's have this conversation about. No, if it comes about, it's really. So it should flow naturally. Don't you want your sex to flow naturally?
Yes.
So why shouldn't the conversation about it?
Right. Right. So, okay, with that being said, what happens when one partner is way more kinky than the other partner?
See, it's going to keep coming back to the same thing for me.
Talking about
you had to have talked about it initially, and if you find out that they can, hey man, what you doing hanging up there? You know, at that point, it's a little too late to have that conversation.
So, say you guys haven't talked about it, or you have, and then, or maybe they're trying to spice it up and just introduce something.
Should have told me you were introducing something, baby. I need to know what the curtain's about to come up on.
Right.
I'm just saying, though, you know.
If they don't introduce it, where does your mind go?
Your mind goes, what is that? I don't know what all these colors and flavors out here for.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, right. Because you don't know. You don't know if this is something they've been waiting to spring on you. This is something that a girlfriend or a guy friend has said, try this. Did they happen to see something on, TV that made them say, let me try this?
Right.
And what's the underlying issue? Why do we all of a sudden need to get kinky? What changed?
But what is the definition of kinky?
Well, and I mean, hey, you brought it up.
Yeah.
I
think,
can be
anything.
But you know what? I think honestly, kinky, freaky, all those different words, if it's outside of your experience, it could be classified as that.
Okay.
Because what's kinky to one person is normal to another. It really is. And I'll joke.
Who defines normal anyway? I have a problem with that.
And that's what I was just about to say.
Right.
There is no box.
Right.
And so when it comes to sex, if you take that approach that we teach with entrepreneurs, see this, all the entrepreneurs, how we taking business right over,
right.
Business and sex, there is no box. If there is no box, how do you define what is normal? We got to define it for
normal
ourselves.
As defined by who? Right.
By who?
Right.
And are you still with that person? Because if you're not, we need to define it by us.
Exactly.
And
with that being said, if you're in a new relationship or you're entering into a relationship after ending one, hopefully not within the same week, month, however.
I got you. Leap year.
And right. And you bring things from your previous relationship. Would you question that person, about
You mean bringing like toys and souvenirs and stuff?
Right.
What do you mean?
Toys, souvenirs, whatever, mindsets.
I mean, come on. If we have a relationship with two people, we brought something from the first person. That's just the reality.
Okay.
But again, I think what's worked now for me, what I'm understanding is if I talk about it or if I bring it up, it doesn't become a surprise or been sprung on them. You got a better chance. Is it a deal breaker? Because that's what you said in the title.
Right.
It could be because if that's not what you're with, I don't believe there should be compromise. You had said in your opening statement, what are the compromises we make, things like that. I don't believe in compromise. And I know some people there are like, that's interesting.
That is.
I feel if you're not settling for anything than our collective best, we have to figure out together what that collective best is.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is if you don't get with certain things, and I say I must have certain things. Well, the best yes for us may be a no. We may not.
Like no more us.
It may not be.
Okay.
I mean, that's the reality. But the mistake is I'm going to compromise. I know you really don't like this, and I know I really like this. So we're going to still get together, and we're going to agree. Now, that's going to come back and haunt you at some point.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, you're setting yourself up for that.
For failure.
Well, you're setting yourself up for challenges, whether you fail at it or not. But if you already know that I don't want whatever you define as kinky, and you've made it clear that that's all you want, and I say, okay, well, we'll do it your way. Well, that's just destined at some point.
Right.
It just takes one time where I don't go along with doing it your way. And what type of relationship is that where we've set it up from the start that one person's going to have more and the other person's going to have less? And we've agreed to that? You're going to eat 2 meals a day. I'm going to eat 3 because I like 3 meals.
Right.
And you only like 2, but I'm not going to stop eating my 3 meals.
Right.
At some point, you're going to look and say, that's not what I want.
Okay. So ultimately, what's to be done if compromise isn't desired?
Discern better. And again,
for the next relationship,
for that relationship, you have to. I mean, if you're in it, for those people that are listening, are in a relationship, like, oh, they're talking about us. Well, you may have some difficult decisions.
Right.
This is not a Pollyanna type of conversation. you realize what you're in. And if you're already in a compromising position and you want to stay in that position, you stay there.
That's up to you.
It is your choice.
Okay.
But you can't say, tell people all the time, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. So let's just approach that with sex and intimacy. Once you have the knowledge of what you and your partner desire, want, can stand, cannot tolerate, you have to apply that knowledge in your relationship and understand that's going to take you in a certain place. May not be a place you necessarily wanted to go, but it is a place where it needs to go. And I experienced that where I said no to a relationship because it wasn't going down a path that I wanted it to go down. And it was difficult. It was hard. There were aspects that were all right about it. But overall, I knew it wasn't going to be the right thing to do. And so
overall, you chose what was best for you.
I chose what was best for us because it probably wouldn't have worked out well anyway down the road. It's just we were going to be prolonging it. And I'm at the point where I don't want to prolong. I'm only, I'm not 25, so I don't have time to go through and say, yeah, it didn't work. No, I need the stuff to kind of work now before things stop working on me. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I got a time frame I'm going on. So as they say, the whipped cream is going bad. I know y'all think about it. He keeps talking about whipped cream. That's because I can't afford the good cream.
Gotcha. Well, keep going in the direction you're going and you will be able to.
Amen. Amen to 100% cream in my life.
Amen. So can a relationship really flourish with more intimacy and less sex?
Definitely. I think so. Intimacy is what makes the sex better.
Right. In my own personal opinion, I feel like without intimacy, then there really is no relationship. It's just sex.
Yeah.
It's just fulfilling a physical need.
Which for some people is what they want, and that's great. All right. So, I mean, I know anybody that, so it's not where we want to, necessarily be, though. So intimacy, though, I think is an aphrodisiac.
Yes, it is.
If I walk by somebody all day and keep, touching that one spot that makes them tremble or looking at them a certain way or
that's just
made sure.
up.
Sure it is.
Foreplay all day.
Hey, foreplay your way anyway. Okay.
Well,
that's what I say.
Love it. Love it. Love it. If communication is such a simple and crucial way to define the parameters of a relationship, why then is it so hard for people to talk about what they really want sexually?
We don't know how to communicate in general. That's a whole nother episode. But when it comes to sex, we have been told not to talk about certain things. You know what? I think all of that training should short circuit once you get to be a certain age. I really do. I get that, but at some point you have to say, you know what? I'm grown folk. I can talk about whatever I want to talk about.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where I am now. I talk about what I want to talk about when I want to talk about it. If you can't have that conversation with me,
we don't need to converse.
We probably don't need to have. We don't need to do anything else. You're not old enough to converse with me. You're definitely not old enough in your mind to have intimacy or sex with me.
Well,
because I do grown folk sex.
Well,
okay.
I
don't do toddler. I do grown folk.
Well, so, I hope none of us do toddler.
But if you're taller and you're thinking, if you're taller and you're thinking,
right.
If somebody doesn't touch you a certain way that you were taught about in Sex 101, you think that they go on to Hades in a handbasket. That's not realistic.
Right.
And I don't think God gave us all these feelings and abilities and talents and he made people double jointed for a reason.
Right.
Use it.
Well, hey, I personally feel that y'all know they've got a lot of books out there on like the Kama Sutra and other, how to have better sex books and intimacy and things like that. I don't necessarily agree with those books because everybody's different. So I believe just getting to know the person and what their likes and dislikes are is the best way to have intimacy and sex. But
I'm gonna tell you something I learned that I just realized God put into my head. I flew cross country once with Dr. Joyce Brothers.
Okay.
She happened to be sitting next to me. I don't know if your older audience may remember her, but she was a sex expert. She was on all the talk shows and everything. And I remember asking her a question about what book should I read to learn about sex? And she gave me an answer that I thought was amazing. She said, you and your partner need to write your own book.
Well.
And I never forgot that.
I like that.
And if you approach your intimacy and sex life in that way and say, I'm with you, you're with me, let us co-author our own book. And we will refer back to our book and we will read that book again and again till the cover is ragged.
Well,
you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
That is what I believe. Now, there may be hints and tips here and there, but there's no one able to write your book on what you want and need than you and your partner. Now, some people might have book collections because they got a lot of partners,
right.
But that's a statement.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But if we're talking from the aspect of a monogamous relationship with that one person, whether it's in marriage or whether it's in a deep relationship in this day in society, write your own book. Write your own book. Create your own terminology, your own concepts, your own index, your own table of contents. You know all the illustrations.
Right.
Write your own book. You be the co-author of your intimacy, sex life, love life.
I like that.
Co-author your relationship.
Co-author your relationship. That should be a book.
Or a workshop.
Or both. We can make it happen.
Yes, ma'am.
So in your relationships, and I know you were talking about how you are successful professionally, but you're learning how to become successful, your definition of successful in your personal life.
Right.
How important is that for you, sex and intimacy in that relationship? And what would be a deal breaker for you, coming from the male perspective?
Coming from the male perspective?
Right.
None. That's a deal breaker for me.
Really? Nothing?
None. No sex, no intimacy?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
Because I don't think I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to, because that's one of the things I want out of a relationship.
Okay.
I get no sex now. That's... I don't need to be in a relationship for that.
Okay, gotcha.
That's like somebody broke saying, "Yeah, I want a rich person, but I don't want no money." What?
Right.
Yeah, come on, you there? You
He
got
said
it.
that's a contradiction to the highest
What
form.
we have here is a failure to communicate.
Well, effectively.
Really, I think a deal breaker for me would be not realizing that a person had certain issues around it that they didn't tell me ahead of time. Because once they put it out there, again, you got to apply the knowledge.
So is that where the discernment comes in?
Part discernment, but you can't discern if somebody doesn't share enough to discern, So, and being able to acknowledge, I don't know. The 5 most powerful words to me: I need your help, please. Now, I talk about that in business, right?
Yes, you do.
But why can't that be in the bedroom? Why can't I look at you and say, "Baby, I need your help, please"? That's 6 words. But I need your help, please. What makes you feel good? I need your help, please. This makes me feel better than that.
Maybe because society has conditioned them to feel like asking for what you really need, especially women. And I'm just saying from women. They've been conditioned to feel like, well, if I say what I really want, they're going to view me in a different way.
Of course they're going to view you in a different way, but that's why you say what you really want, so that you know ahead of time. But all of y'all talk about, and I say that because we're talking about the women's side of it, but everybody that uses hair conditioner, at some point they say, I need to change conditioners because it's not doing what I need to do for my hair.
Okay.
So why don't you change your conditioner?
Gotcha.
If what you've been talking about or not talking about has been giving you results that you don't desire, care for, want to tolerate anymore, then change what you talk about. That's kind of where I am. Again, I'm on the second half of the life, not the first half. So if I get into a relationship, I want that person to know I like this. I like that. I really get off on this. I really get off on that. I don't like this. I don't do that. I only do this on Tuesday and Thursday if it's closed. You know what I'm saying? You need to know. Okay. And I think that makes it more fulfilling. And then the person knows whatever they're doing, you really want it and really like it. And if you're doing something they don't like, now you understand why. It's not a matter of you doing something wrong. It's wrong for them.
So if you enter into, and of course, this is going back to you guys have had this conversation during the companionship or whatever period stage.
Getting to know you stage.
Right, getting to know you. If you encounter someone that you two are really into each other and they really want to cross that line and they want to be intimate and have sex, but they have a past history of abuse, how would you work through that, or would you be willing to work through that? Do
I know they had a past history of abuse? Have they told me?
Right.
Okay. I think that would be a conversation. Because I would want to know if I care about them. I would say, well, baby, what do you want to share with me about it? What do I need to know? That's all I need to ask, baby.
Okay.
Baby, I need your help, please. Explain to me what that means.
Just that simple.
It is simple. It's simple for me to say that. It's for her or him, okay, to be able to say what they are comfortable with sharing and how that impacts them. Because a great example, real short example that I thought about, if you were a person that was abused and you came home from work and your previous husband, boyfriend, whatever, would grab you and just throw you down and forcibly have sex with you.
Right.
And you come in the house one day and I walk up behind you and grab you around the waist because I want to try to kiss you on the back of your neck.
Right.
You all right? And I want you to feel how happy I am to see you.
Right.
Well, that could be you.
Trigger.
Yeah, it could trigger those self-defense classes you took for a whole year and a half.
Right.
And now I'm sitting on the floor saying, this is why I'm engaged, you know. You're right?
Right.
And then I need your help, please.
Right.
You know? Same 5 words, different context.
Different.
So, but do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying.
It has to be something where you understand what's going on.
Got you.
Yeah,
Got you.
yeah.
So can you share with us what has been one of your darkest moments in relationships and why?
One of the darkest moments was realizing that I had lost the desire for someone.
Wow.
And knowing in my heart that I have no more desire to be with this person physically. And thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm actually a healthy, vibrant young man and I do not want this woman. That is just...
So what would cause a person to get to that point?
For me, it was just understanding that what they wanted and what I wanted was completely different. And it just caused me to shut down.
To lose complete
interest and desire. I mean, that's really what it was. And as guys, we don't get taught a lot about what these signs are and what we're feeling. You know, we're hunt, kill, destroy.
Right.
I robot type. For me, I was around a lot of strong women growing up, and then I've got strong women around me on a daily basis now as far as entrepreneurs. So I now realize that it's okay for me to show that I'm human and that I get impacted. And I remember I had a conversation. I had a conversation with a guy I really respected. And he said, man, it must be something wrong with you. You got something right next to you in bed. You need to handle that. And he just couldn't get with the fact that I was saying it wasn't about that.
He didn't get it.
No, and so that was the darkest moment because there's a lot of repercussions on that. It impacted everything. It changed the relationship. It took it down a path where, there's no return from.
Right.
Not because of the sex, but because of the deeper issues around it. But that was the darkest moment for me, to have that sense of, And conversely, one of the lightest moments that I've ever had was realizing that, oh my goodness, I want this. That's an amazing euphoric feeling to realize.
Say that last part again.
That you want this, or that whatever that is, intimacy.
What this is.
Yeah,
right.
Intimacy or sex, or you realize, oh my goodness, she does it for me. I mean, she does it. The apple. she's at Nirvana.
She's it.
Yeah,
Right.
and I don't mean for those guys listening, she's it right now.
Thank you for clarifying.
I'm saying she's it. When you get that feeling, the person is that it, and you think, and whether it works out or not, I'd like to think that anybody that ever has been married, they looked at the other person at some point and said, he's it, she's it. They may have figured out later on it wasn't as much as they thought, but there's a moment where you're saying,
that's it.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that. That should happen more than once in your life, I think. Because I think there's more than one person out there for everybody. You can be soulmates, but
you know what? You took my next question.
Yeah, there's more than one person out there for everybody. I don't think God said just you and just this person.
And no more, right?
No, I don't think that. But I think He's given everybody enough of a pool of talents, abilities, characteristics, and personality that you find combinations that do work with you. And the same way you can discern how to get the right one, you may have to discern how not to get the wrong
How
one.
to avoid the wrong
Everybody has a boyfriend or a male friend or a female friend that always seems to pick a certain type of guy or a certain type of girl. And they look at you and say, I don't know why this always happens. And you like, chick, because you always picking this type of person.
Right there.
Yeah. As they say now, that part.
Right. That's my word.
So yeah.
Okay. So, you kind of shared on what your darkest and your greatest moments were.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the difficulties that you've endured in marriage, and I'm sorry, not in marriages, and in relationships, even though you were married, you can use that as a point of reference as well. What are some of those difficulties, and how has that helped shape you today as far as what you want and desire?
Just not talking. For me, it was always around not communicating. Non-communication, or, you know what, unclear communication.
Okay.
Me saying I don't like something, but not saying what I do like. Me saying what I need and what I don't need. Okay. For instance, you may have a man and woman, they have a pretty healthy sex life, but yet either the man or the woman like to please themselves at times. And you're like, well, why are you doing that? Why do you need that? I'm here. I don't know. Maybe it's something that they do. That's a way they get themselves aroused. Maybe that's all that that's what they were taught.
Right.
You know, maybe it's a reflex. Maybe they don't know any better. You know, so things like that have to be shared and understood.
So do you think that would ever pose a problem?
It can pose a big problem, I think, because if one person is satisfying themselves and they don't really require the other person to satisfy them. I'm not big on self-gratification. And let me just be very transparent. I tried it at a point in my life and I don't get it. You ain't gonna ever have to worry about me having cramped hands, okay? Because I just feel there's a reason why she's there, okay?
Or he's there,
right? So, well, for you, I'm gonna stay with she's there. Right. You can chime in with he's there.
Well, I'm just saying.
You may be a baker. You never roll this dough.
No. I'm just saying from the woman's perspective.
No. That's good. You take that side of the table. I'm gonna stay right here where I was.
Well, that's what we're doing.
I'm gonna keep saying she.
Okay, and I'm gonna keep saying he.
That's fine. I'll be your shocker.
But I have to agree with that. Yeah, I don't get the whole self-gratification thing because I have tried it in the past and all it did was make me angry because I wasn't really satisfied.
Yeah, you know,
no topic taboo.
Yeah, but I mean, I was in this. Yeah, and I mean, I have been through some situations. You know what? That was a dark point for me. One time when I was in a situation where I decided to try to self-gratify myself, and I know we're saying that so we don't say the other word, but it's much easier for me to say the M&M word. But and she walked in. Okay. And she's like, well, what are you doing? I couldn't say dishes. You know, you know what I'm saying?
Obviously not.
You know, and that, but the fact of the matter was, I was like, that's where I was. I'm like, well, she's here.
Now,
but
did you do that because you felt you weren't being satisfied by her?
Because I wasn't going to be able to be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because of the situation.
Gotcha.
You know, we weren't going to be doing anything.
You lost the desire.
No, that was a totally different situation.
Okay.
You know, I'm just being vague on purpose. You
Gotcha.
know, because the events may be fictional. But yeah, and that was a dark point for me, just as a man. Right. You know, I'm like, you know, I wasn't very good at it anyway. You know, I had the notes on the table trying to see what to do and all that. You know, it's just that wasn't me. I want to have a healthy, vibrant, intimate relationship. You know, when I have one, I want it to be healthy. I want it to be vibrant. I want the person to be like, I thought you were this age. I know you thought that, didn't you?
Right.
But
that's what we all want. Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I want, and I want it to be something that's it can be invigorating. I also want it to be something where the person says, you know what, you don't have to do all this right now. Here's real for you. Intimacy is somebody saying, make love to me. Intimacy is somebody saying, I just want you. Give me good 10 minutes and then I'll go do dinner, you know, or we're going to do this and then we're going to go to sleep. It was like Harlem Nights. You know, she said, why don't we make love for 2 hours? He said, why don't we make love real hard for 25 minutes?
I remember
and go into a deep coma-like sleep.
Yes,
and everybody in the movie theater was like, yes.
Yes.
So
because that's real.
Well, sometimes that's all, you know, hey, you know, there was a great commercial. Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
Well. Okay.
And you have to take that approach. And, you know, and we laugh because, you know, we it's not talked about all the time. But anybody that's been around me knows I talk straight about everything from business to whatever. And
real talk, no chasing.
It has to be. And if you know, that's a good plug. If you do real talk, real change, if you have real talk about your life, sexually and intimacy wise, you can define real change for it. So I do not feel that you can't come back from something that has been discovered or realized. But you can only do that if you understand it's going to be a process, and you both have to be willing to have that collective best. You see how all this kind of ties in for me?
It does.
It just keeps coming back to the same things.
You can't separate. What I'm hearing is you can't separate the two, the personal from the professional, as far as you as a person.
Because I'm a person.
Right.
That is. And so once you realize what works in one environment, figure out how it works in the other.
Gotcha.
It took me a while to figure it out, but I'm starting to. And I've always said the next person that I'm in a relationship with is going to love it because I've learned so many things not to do in the past.
Right.
Each relationship should be better.
Right.
That's right. I'll give you that on that.
Good stuff.
Each relationship should be better until you finally get it right for you and that other person. And until that happens, how much you date, how often, what that looks like, it's different for everybody. Again, co-author your own book.
Right.
You know.
So sex and intimacy, deal breaker. I will say for my listening audience, for me, deal breaker. Yeah, sex with no intimacy.
Sex with no intimacy is a deal breaker, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But good sex with a little bit of intimacy, you'll get by?
Yes.
You know, I'm a person, I think the honest answer for me would be I need more intimacy than sex.
Exactly.
I mean, I actually need more. I'm a person that grew up needing to feel appreciated and desired and of worth. I think I created E3 and need just to have people saying you're helpful, you're relevant, you know.
Well, you are.
But I'm just saying that for me, intimacy does that.
Okay.
If somebody is intimate with you, it's because they want you. They want you around. They want to, you know, you're a key aspect of them. Sex is a great additive to it, but sex without the intimacy for me would be a deal breaker.
Did I say that? Did I say that right? I said sex and no intimacy is a deal breaker. That's what I meant to say. Did I say that?
Well, you just said it was a deal breaker, so I didn't know. It all depends on what you're feeling right now. So
anyway,
all right.
So the call to action and the takeaway. What would you have our listening audience? What would you leave them with?
Understanding that in order to have true happiness when it comes to sex and intimacy, you're going to have to be open to hearing what the other person says, and you're going to have to be willing to share what you want to say and look for your collective best and co-author your own book when it comes to sex. Don't use other tomes to dictate how you conduct yourself.
Right.
Create your own book.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Butler. And there you have it for my listening audience. Sex and intimacy deal breaker. In a nutshell, when talking about sex and intimacy, it's between the two individuals that are involved. So going to try to find out what works for you two in a book or by things that have been instilled in you in your upbringing probably isn't going to work if you want to have a long and lasting and successful relationship. So again, Mr. Butler, I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your heart and being transparent.
It's been an honor.
And getting to the heart of the matter where sex and intimacy is concerned. I want to thank you, our national and international listeners, for joining us. You've been listening to Michelle Speaks with me, your host, Michelle Portier. Today was the first part of our two-part series, Sex and Intimacy, Deal Breakers, with my friend and special guest, Anthony M. Butler Sr. We're on every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 180radionow.com. And if you missed this show or any of our previously aired shows, you can go to 180radionow.com and click the podcast link to access the podcast directory 24/7. Look for the Michelle Speaks logo and click it to get access. Download the 180 Radio Now app on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Just search for 180 Radio Now. We can be heard on every major internet radio outlet: TuneIn, iTunes Radio, Streema, Radio.com, and more. It is my prayer that what you heard has blessed you. Join us again and let's get to the truth of the matter. Remember, if you hide it, you can't heal it.